Hello, I am Rob,
And I'm Rob.
and welcome to Impossible Mission, the Geek Show's video game discussion show. This week, we're going to be taking a little bit of a continuation on from last week. Last week we talked about the Xbox Series X showcase, and why it was good, why it was bad, and what that means for future console wars, and we're following that up by looking at launch titles. What makes a good launch title?
Well, yeah, what sells the console at its launch? What game, there's got to be something that makes you want to buy that console. It can't just be the hardware. Nobody buys a console just for the hardware.
Well, PC gamers do. That's another matter.
PC gamers are fine, okay? I'm a PC gamer as well. I moonlight as one. So, yeah.
I know, I'm not teasing, I'm just saying that's a big part of PC gaming, isn't it? Updating the kit.
Yeah.
But I think, just going back to last week, Xbox are kind of shaking that up a bit from the traditional idea of what a launch game is.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to buy a console day one that's next generation, I think Xbox Series X is the only real choice, because you'll actually have a good, solid launch selection with this Games Pass. And saying it and hearing it as much as I have, it feels like propaganda, like Microsoft propaganda.
Yeah.
There's a good reason for it, though.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, if you look at consoles throughout their history, there are certain games that when you look at them, you automatically associate it with a particular console, but that's because those games basically sold that console.
I mean, Halo got a lot of flack. Like, Halo Infinity got a lot of flack. But I think it's because of the importance of Halo to a lot of people, because, honestly, it's one of the great launch titles.
Yeah, Halo sold the Xbox. The reason so many people bought the Xbox was because of Halo.
I mean, I wasn't a fan. I've never played a Halo, but you can't dispute the fact that somehow this scrappy little console, which climbed out of the wreckage of the massive failure of the Dreamcast,
Yeah.
had this title, which now is basically as known in a household name sort of way. It's up there with Mario and Sonic.
Yeah. But I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned the Dreamcast, because the Dreamcast had a couple of amazing launch titles. Power Stone and Soul Calibur.
They were both launch titles.
Yep. It also had some duffers like Blue Stinger, which was also a launch title.
Was it Soul Calibur? Because Soul Calibur is Soul Blade 2, isn't it?
Yes, it only came out on the Dreamcast. And
I think honestly, I think they should have sticked with Soul Blade, because it's just such a nicer sounding title, I'll be honest.
well, I'll be honest, Soul Blade isn't the original name either, because the
I know
original
it's probably an anglicised one, isn't it?
No, the original arcade cabinet, I remember this because I was at university in London during the 90s, and on Tottenham Court Road there were loads of video game arcades. I used to go into the video game arcades on the way home from university, and I'd sit there and play these games against these people who were in there. And the game that became Soul Blade on the PlayStation 1 was actually called Soul Edge at the arcade.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah. But that's beside the point.
Yeah.
Nintendo, I mean, the best launch game ever of all time will never ever be even remotely competed with any way, shape or form.
You're talking about Duck Hunt, aren't you?
Yeah, obviously. No, Tetris.
Yeah, Tetris. Tetris is like, I think it's the fourth best-selling game of all time, or third best-selling game of all time.
I mean, let's just get favourites out of the way. Favourites is one thing, another thing, but probably the best game of all time is Tetris.
When you say best game, or do you mean best-selling game or best game?
Just best game.
Yeah. In terms of just what it is, in terms of just how it plays, Tetris is arguably the greatest game ever made.
It's purity. I mean, you can't really compete with it, to be honest. I mean, everybody has played it.
Yeah. Tetris, I've got the list. Tetris is the third best-selling game of all time. There's only two above it. Minecraft.
One of the other sort of Minecraft was that, yeah.
Yeah, Minecraft and Grand Theft Auto 5. And you know what's below Tetris?
No.
Another console launch title, Wii Sports.
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo are absolutely stellar at launching a new device.
Yeah.
Wii Sports was great. I think, was Ocarina of Time a launch title? I'm not sure.
Yeah, Ocarina of Time was a launch title for the N64, wasn't it?
And, more famously, Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, but I mean, Nintendo have a long history of having some stellar games that come out. F-Zero on the SNES.
It makes you think what's in the water at Nintendo which other companies aren't doing, because every amazing launch title that Nintendo have managed to scrap together, there has been a average Sony launch, and I've been with Sony since PlayStation 1, so this is coming from a place of love and entirely from a place of love, but they are shocking at doing launch titles. I can't think of a good one, honestly. I can't think of anything which is...
I have a couple, because as much as we did remind people that The Bouncer from the then Squaresoft, if I remember rightly, was a launch title for the PlayStation 2, looked great, played awfully, it was a horrible game, and if you ever get the chance to play it, don't. You'll regret it.
Well, it wasn't a bad game. It was basically like Golden Axe in a JRPG that was trying to pretend it was the next new thing, but actually it was just Golden Axe. If it's Golden Axe, don't try and pretend you're not Golden Axe. Just lean into the Golden Axe.
Well, yeah, it was kind of that, but it was trying to do the 3D environment Golden Axe. You know, that Golden Axe that came out on the Xbox 360, that horrible, horrible Golden Axe. It was trying to be that, but...
we try to forget that.
It was trying to be that Golden Axe, not the actual good Golden Axe. Another PlayStation 2 launch title, which... And you love this game. Time Splitters.
Well, not so much Time Splitters. Time Splitters was kind of like a good proof of concept. Time Splitters 2, I adore, and Time Splitters 3.
But Splitters was a good game.
Yeah, it was just sort of we're not quite there yet, but this is like a good first stab.
The thing is, I don't see any other manufacturer, any other console manufacturer that can rival Nintendo for the sheer number of games that it put out that were just stone cold classics.
I mean, just going back to the PlayStation 1, the PlayStation 4, the big highlight of their launch slate was Resogun.
Yeah.
Which kind of says everything. I mean, not talking down to Resogun, it's very good arcade shmup, but to launch like a £400 worth of kit, this independent game isn't exactly showing off the capabilities of that thing, because that is essentially what you want with a new launch game, which is why I think Microsoft are both inspired and a little bit with their launch games this generation. Because on the one hand, you're getting loads of games.
Yeah.
Loads of games, like the entire history of like whatever on Games Pass. But at the same time, how many specifically designed for that? Maybe the medium?
But look at the other launch titles that came out for the PlayStation 4. I mean, Knack.
Knack is a tech demo. I know it has its fans, who almost seem like to be a meme, the Knack fans. But, yeah, it's a tech demo.
Yeah, it's a tech demo. And, PlayStation, like you said, they don't have a good history when it comes to launch titles. You get the odd classic, you get the odd game that really is a console seller, but when your history goes back to the original PlayStation and one of your launch games for the original PlayStation is Street Fighter the movie, the video game...
Hey. Oh, no. I remember that.
Didn't expect that one, did you?
It looked sort of like rotoscoped, didn't it?
Yeah.
And it's just not a good game.
No, it wasn't. Street Fighter 2, great game, right? Street Fighter 3, great game. Street Fighter, the movie, the video game, which literally is a meme of itself, or a parody of itself, or whatever it is... It's like Mortal Kombat, but without all the things that made Mortal Kombat.
You mean it didn't have the absolutely awful rave track?
Yeah, it didn't have the rave track, didn't have the blood that you could basically... I think it was on the Mega Drive.
No, I mean the movie, the Mortal Kombat movie, it had that song, which I hate.
Oh, yeah, we're not talking about that. I'm talking about the original Mortal Kombat game on the Mega Drive. It played like that, but on a much more powerful console with better graphics. But it's still played like Mortal Kombat on the Sega Mega Drive.
So what I think is essentially what we're saying in this first half of the episode is launch consoles aren't worth anything.
Launch games, yeah.
Well, launch consoles, because essentially you got to play games on your console. You can't just get a piece of kit and pay. I've paid £500 on my PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X, and what am I going to play on it? Oh, I don't know, a 3-year-old game on the previous generation. That's not really what you do with that, is it? You want something new to show off your piece of kit.
Thing is, the whole idea of a launch game has kind of lost a lot of its glamour in recent generations. And when the Saturn came out, you had things like Daytona Rally and Panzer Dragoon, being launched with a big song and dance. But then, as time's gone on, you get things like Knack on the PS4, which they try to make a big hue and cry about, and then it just disappeared. Nobody heard about it.
There's a Knack too, I think. But it's such an afterthought with so many people that I think saying I think there's a sequel to Knack is about as good as you can get.
See, the sequel to Knack should have just been called Knackers, but...
The other one was a gag of a release as well, wasn't it? This became a meme. Was it PlayStation 3? Genji Days of the Blade with its giant crabs?
Oh, God, yeah, the giant crabs. Oh, wow. See, that's the thing. The original Genji, right, was actually an interesting game on the PlayStation 2 that was reminiscent of Onimusha, if I remember rightly.
Sort of Onimusha by way of Devil May Cry, but with Japanese folklore.
Yeah, and it wasn't a bad game. It got some praise for it, and people thought, okay, I'm looking forward to it. It might be another Onimusha-style franchise. Let's see where it goes. And then Days of the Blade came out, and everyone went, why?
Yeah, and at this phase, it's too early to say with PlayStation 5, but I don't think their launch slate is entirely inspiring love again this time around.
Yeah, Xbox 360, and I know we haven't really talked much about Microsoft, but Xbox 360, one of their launch games, and I thought this was really bold, but one of the launch games was Condemned Criminal Origins, a survival horror launch game, and that takes a lot of guts to do. Because survival horror isn't really the most appreciated genre in video games.
Well, it's not mainstream.
It's mainstream. That's why I use the word appreciated rather than mainstream.
Well, it's mainstream, but it's mainstream in the sense of it'll play at a megaplex, but in that megaplex, 8 screens are showing Marvel and 1 will show the latest horror movie. It's mainstream in that sort of very minimal way. Yeah,
but I mean, if you look at the Xbox One, the launch titles from that, you had things like Rise, Son of Rome, which, again, was... it had some bizarre QuickTime events in there.
It still looks beautiful.
Oh, it still looks great, but it's a bit like Knack in that it's more of a tech demo than it is a game.
Yeah, just in the last quarter of this episode. A different question, but it's kind of related, because you got to be sold on a console, haven't you?
Yeah.
A game's got to come around and say, yes, I want to buy this new machine.
Yeah.
So I think I'll go first. The one that got me into the PlayStation 3 was Metal Gear Solid 4 Sons of Liberty, was it called? I can't remember its subtitle. Subtitles are so confusing with Metal Gear Solid games.
Metal Gear Solid 4 wasn't that Guns of the Patriots?
That's it, yes. Yeah.
Sons of Liberty was Metal Gear Solid 2.
But that was the one that sold me on that device.
Yeah.
And that wasn't a launch title. I think that was about 2 years in.
Yeah.
PlayStation 1, weirdly, Actua Soccer. A game which has gone down in Actua, to say it less scouse. It's no offence to people from Liverpool, it was just a joke. It's a franchise which has gone down in history and utterly been forgotten. Actua Soccer. I think it was Codemasters' attempt at a football franchise.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was one of those, oh my god, this is a football game, because before that, our football games were kind of sensible soccer kick-off.
Well, yeah, those are the games that I grew up with.
And then a 3D football game. It's like, oh, wow, this is the future.
The top-down beautiful game. That's how we played. That's how we rolled back in the 80s.
Yeah, so is there anything for you that really stands out as sort of, it sold you on the... I mean, also... Going back a bit further, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time sold me on the N64, but that kind of goes without saying because it is a legit classic.
See, this is the thing. I've had like loads of different consoles, and if I'm talking about the PlayStation 1, kind of going from that era, because it'd be easier to do, back when I started playing games, you didn't really have this whole thing like launch titles, because games were kind of more of a mass of stuff that got thrown at you through magazines and... maybe the odd TV commercial or billboard if you could afford it. I still remember the billboard for a game called F-16 Fighting Falcon, which I believe was out on the Commodore Amiga at the time. And it was just basically a toilet with a brick in it, and it just said, "You will."
Gaming culture wasn't a thing like it is now. Back then, gaming was such a niche, nerdy, not mainstream accepted thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so back then, up until like the PlayStation 1 era and the kind of Mega Drive, later Mega Drive SNES era, I'd say Mario Kart, for example, was the game that made me want a SNES.
It's probably the best kart racer of all time, hands down. That no competition, I'd say.
Mario Kart was the game because I played it at a friend's house and I thought, oh, this is a wonderful game. I want to play this, and that got me into kind of the SNES gaming thing. But on the Mega Drive side, to be honest, it was Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, I remember getting Mortal Kombat, and it was like a naughty thing to have Mortal Kombat because it was the press was in such a furore.
Yeah. Do you remember that Simpsons episode where he steals the game? Storm. Yeah. Mortal Kombat is that game.
And he ends up with the golf game.
Oh, the putting challenge. Yeah, for me, on the Mega Drive, it was Mortal Kombat, and then to a lesser degree, I suppose, Killer Instinct, but that was only because there was I saw some guy do 173 hit combo at the arcades, and I went, how the hell did you do that? He went, I don't know. I just kept pressing buttons. I could see him, I could see the hit counter going up and up and up, and this guy was sweating buckets. And he was hyperventilating by the time the combo had finished, and everyone around us is cheering, and he's panting for breath, he's gasping for breath to see how far you can go. You don't get moments like that in like modern gaming. But the PlayStation 2, I'll be honest, after playing Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9, I was a fan, and after playing like 6 and 5 and 4 as well. I was a fan of Square Enix at that point, or Squaresoft as they were. So when I saw they were doing a launch title called The Bouncer for the PlayStation 2, I decided to buy a PlayStation 2. I was lied to, Rob. They lied to me.
I think it was actually Metal Gear Solid as well. It got me on the PlayStation 1.
Yeah, Metal Gear Solid was one that came out on the PlayStation 1 that a lot of people bought the console for.
I remember pretending to be ill for a few days off school and got quite a bit of time in it.
Yeah, a lot of people bought it for Final Fantasy 7 and 8 and 9. A lot of people bought it for Metal Gear Solid.
And for the PlayStation 5, I'll just say I don't see that title yet.
Yeah.
They haven't got that title yet, but it'll get people in.
The thing is, I haven't seen that kind of title since the time of the PlayStation 2. PlayStation 3 didn't have any title like that for me.
Well, I'd say Metal Gear Solid, but that was out of series... misplaced, as it turns out, because all the ones after that were kind of meh. But misplaced series loyalty.
Yeah, same with Final Fantasy 13. Misplaced series loyalty. A game that could only be told over 3 chapters.
And increasingly skimpy swimwear costumes.
Yeah, we don't talk about that.
And on that, I think we'll wrap this one up. But I ask the question to you, viewers, stroke listeners. Comment below with games that you were sold. Or sold console on you, I should say. But until next time, please do comment anywhere, like, subscribe, and check out thegeekshow.co.uk for all the other stuff that we do.